With the success of the first Maximo game on PS2, a sequel was pretty much inevitable. Unlike the first game though, which has a decent amount of development info, there isn't much to go around for its sequel. But like I said, the first Maximo sold well enough to not just become a greatest hit on PS2, but a sequel was developed. Thus, we come to Maximo vs. Army of Zin, known in Japan as Records of the Demon World Hero Maximo Ambition of the Machine Monsters. Boy, that's a mouthful. This game was released exclusively on the PS2, like the first, for Japan on September 18th, 2003, January 20th, 2004 for North America, and February 13th, 2004 for Europe. After playing the first, I was hoping the second would improve on some of the first game's shortcomings, and surprisingly, it actually does. Let's see where it improves. After the events of the first game, Maximo is searching for his lost love, Sophia. Grimm is accompanying him for helping him in the first game. While out on their search, a new threat emerges. A group of mechanical creatures, known as the titular Army of Zin, start attacking villagers and killing the villagers. The Army of Zin are an ancient army powered by lost souls who were supposedly locked in the vault of Castle Hawkmoor after the last battle with them 500 years ago. However, thanks to mysterious warlord / new final boss Lord Bane, they are now free. It's up to Maximo, Grimm, and Master Inventor Tinker, along with her robot sidekick Crank, to stop Lord Bane and seal the army. The gameplay itself is mostly unchanged from the first Maximo. You'll go from one end of the level to the other while hacking and slashing away at enemies and performing platforming. I won't go into too much detail here since I've already reviewed the first Maximo, and if you played it, you'll pretty much pick up on this immediately. Virtually not much has been changed in terms of the actual gameplay. There is a new feature of the game that temporarily lets you transform into Grimm. When your blue meter builds up enough with souls gathered from the enemies, you can transform into Grimm. He's invincible, more powerful, and a little faster than Maximo. You can only be in Grimm mode for a limited amount of time, but you can upgrade this aspect to get more time out of Grimm mode in addition to other upgrades seen in the previous game. You also now have a hammer in addition to your sword and shield for more combat and puzzle variety. You'll also save innocents in the level after clearing a set of enemies per section of the level. They'll give you bonuses like new armor / a word of advice. Aside from those changes, there have been several other changes. The main thing is how you handle transitioning from stage to stage. Rather than a portal stage, you now have a map screen. That's right, no more trying to fend off enemies while searching for the next stage. Just go straight to the next stage. This is a major improvement as you finally have a bit of breathing space in between stages compared to the first game. The other major changes, are you ready for this? You can save freely! That's right, saves are no longer limited. You can save as many times as you need / want, and you don't have to spend a single coin on them, meaning you can save your coins for the items and upgrades that matter the most. You'll still need death coins like in the first, but the continue cost doesn't increase. As long as you have one, you'll respawn at the last used checkpoint. If you run out though, it will just take you back to the map screen. If you can't already tell, this game is more forgiving than its predecessor, but it still keeps things that made the first game challenging while fixing the stuff that went overboard. Since the gameplay hasn't changed too much from the first game, it's no surprise the level layout hasn't changed. You'll have a few stages per world and then a boss at the end. You'll still have those spooky-like levels in the first, but the game does tend to mix in some steampunk-style levels a little bit more towards the end. In fact, the whole game itself has a bit more of a steampunk vibe between enemies, some levels, part of the plot. It's not heavy per se, but it is noticeable and does help distinguish this game from the first. Graphically, the game really doesn't look all too different from the first. While there have been some slight touch-ups on models and environments, they only look slightly better than the first game. Everything does feel familiar, and hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it, so it is what it is. The controls also feel pretty much the same as the first. I would say they've been tightened up a bit in comparison with the first game. Everything feels responsive still, and the new hammer controls well to make an excellent addition to Maximo's gear. There is a decent amount of recycled sound effects, but since most of the levels feel similar to the first, it's not a surprise they're reused here, and they still sound good for that matter. Music is also pretty good, very similar to the first, branching out depending on what the level where applicable. Forgot to mention this in the Maximo 1 review, but legendary game composer Tommy Tallarico composed both of the Maximo OSTs. The voice acting is better than the first, as it is a little more serious, and several actors from the first come back for this one. Though Chris Ederle replaces Carlos Alizaraki as the voice of Grim, he still does a good job. All the other voice actors do a good job as well. If you master the levels, you can unlock entries in the gallery. If you don't get everything the first time, you can go back freely and replay to get what you missed for unlocking gallery entries. So there is some replayability. Maximo vs. the Army of Sin is a solid platformer in its own right, and I'd go so far as to say it's even better than its predecessor. The game still keeps what makes the first game great. Good level design, good graphics, even if they're only slightly better than the first game, excellent controls, good music, and sound design, while the challenge from the first is still there. A lot more of the unfair crap like limited saves has been removed, or in the case of the map screen replacing the portal stage, reworked to be more forgiving while keeping what made the game challenging in the first place. However, the game can still kick your ass at times. There's not much visual/audio changes, and it really isn't much different from the first game. Still, this is a great platformer in its own right. If you played the first, you're probably going to enjoy this game. If you haven't, and you want a slightly more forgiving version of it, I would actually recommend you get the sequel first. You can follow the story of this one on its own, and still enjoy it in its own way. It's a bit pricier than the first though. CIB copies currently go around for $35. $20 would be my ideal price. I give Maximo vs. the Army of Sin a 4 out of 5. Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, click the big red button below to subscribe. Check out the other links in the description for more cool stuff, and check out the playlist on screen for more content. See you in the next video.